Rain. There'll be one handful when we start. And if we sing long enough, there may be half a church full. And that's the case today, and it's good to be here. It's always good to be in the pulpit. I enjoy preaching, I enjoy talking. I find my wife here in the latter days trying to pull me away from conversation. She said, "You wear everybody out talking." I said, "If you talk to me more at home, I wouldn't have to do that." Fellas, you know, sometimes we don't get talked to at home, we get talked at. Praise the Lord. It's good to see Gay and Bob here today. And everybody else that's with us. Now, I see, this may have been brought to the attention of people before. I don't know. But this was a little earring that was found while cleaning. Does it belong to any of you? Do you have one earring and don't have the second?
Is it a diamond and gold?
Well, Emma, if you want this after the service, let me stick it back on this little thing. Oh, dear. Let me see. Jane and I went out to see the Godwins one day this week. She had signed up to take food to. And the food was very incidental in what we were doing. We went out there and we got to visit with them. We had not seen Beth since she had been home. And frankly, it was the most inspiring thing for us. Beth, we felt, was much farther along in recovering from this big stroke that she had than we had anticipated. It gave us great encouragement to keep pressing in and praying for her with all diligence that she be completely restored and that she be all right, completely made whole again. And here comes my water boy. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. You know, one of the pluses of living a long time is that everybody wants to help you. Everybody wants to take care of you. I was asked this week by a friend that I was talking to long distance if my children and my grandchildren were being attentive to me. I said, yes, they're about to love me to death. And I appreciate it. I'm very glad for their love and for their attention, as we all are. We never get to the point where we don't appreciate that. And my family has been wonderful to me, as well as my friends, and we appreciate all of that. Be sure you keep praying for one another in the church. Kay Folsom has had a very difficult week. So hold Kay up in your prayer. And Kay has a lot of issues in her life that are trouble. And it's a wonderful experience be in a place where you don't really have too many things that trouble you. Well, you're a horse, I can hear it. Well, quit listening to it. Look at me and listen to me and say, boy, doesn't he look good? You know, his age, he's doing great. Boy, he had hair that makes him tall. Well, it wouldn't do the whole work, but it could help. And pray for our men and women who are in the military. I'm glad to see Stanley here this morning. Stanley spent the week down with his dad in Puniac because his sister had gone with their sister up to a camp in Maine, one in Maine, I think, where you've almost reached Canada when you get up to Maine. I went up there one time and the people didn't even speak with a southern accent. I could barely understand. That was the time that we left the wedding just as soon as we could get away. I told Jana, I said, when this wedding is over, it was up above Caribou. I said, we're going to slip away. We've got to go and take a sip of punch out of the right bowl because I'm going to be driving. And I only drink out of the right bowl anyway. And I started out the door, and here comes the bride's mother. Come here, Dudley. She always called me Dudley. You haven't danced with me yet. I said, Nancy, I haven't danced, period, in 25 years. And I danced with her and danced myself right up to the door and out to the Jan Chadwick came up to me last Friday night at the wedding reception in Tuscaloosa for our wonderful friend. She's 61 years old. She's never been married. She wanted a husband forever. When she's listened to all the tales from her friends about what husbands are like, I don't know why she still wanted one. But she did. And Jan came up at a certain moment and grabbed me and said, come on, John D, dance with me. I said, wait a minute. I can't dance. She said, yes, you can. I saw you dance one night out at the church at Webb. You danced all over the front of that church. You even danced up on the platform. I said, I was under the Spirit. And I really was, and I had a wonderful time dancing. And I danced, for a boy was there, and they thought he was having a heart attack. And I felt the Lord tell me, dance for his healing. Now, I didn't hear a voice, but I danced. I've been wanting a good excuse to cut loose and dance in the church. And I danced, and I enjoyed it, and this has nothing to do with our service today. How many of you have searched your heart recently and found out what's going on in it? Can y'all hear me? Can I be heard okay? And I want to give that title to our message today, because keep your heart open to God. Be open to change. And for that, you have to search your heart. Now, I've known that all my life. That was taught to me at my parents' dinner table. And in their discussions with us in our home. I was raised in a very godly home. happy home, a good time home, a fun home, a home that was crowded with our friends. Dad used to say, I remember Daddy saying to Mother one time, Mary, why do you always let the children have so many people over you all the time? Now, you've got to remember this was back in the 40s. And Mama said, John, if the children are over here, I know what they're doing. I have no idea what they're doing when they leave here. And do you know that's still the same? That doesn't change. That doesn't change. Not at all. David says in Psalm 51, verse 6, Thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden parts thou shalt make me to know wisdom. What a statement. What a reality that King David had in his heart, because he lived in a relationship where he was in love with Jesus all the time. And he stepped out of line at times and missed the best that God had for him. He did that as a young king with the beautiful Bathsheba. And the child of that poor decision died. David wept for the child and prayed to God to allow the child to have life and to continue. But after God's appointed time, the child went on to heaven. And David then had to search his heart. Where did I miss it? What happened? And Linda, it was the eye gate. Linda was talking about different gates of the soul. He looked and saw something that was very enticing and very beautiful. And he allowed his reaction to seeing that beautiful woman take control of him. You know, I don't mean this rudely and lewdly in any way. I've always appreciated the way a beautiful woman looks. I still do. Every morning I look over my wife and I say, honey, you're just so beautiful. She says, get out of here. Don't worry, nothing's going to happen. I just want to tell you how pretty you are. And she is to me. You know, every one of you women in this church, to me, you're just beautiful. I try to look and see the measure of Christ in everybody I meet. There is some of Christ in every believer. There is some influence of Christ even on unbelievers. That's the rain falling on the just and on the unjust. And David had, when confronted by the prophet Nathan, had to inspect his life and his heart. Now, when God is dealing with us, and God was dealing with David because he had misstepped, he had sinned. called sin anything but sin. It's not a bad choice. It's not a stumble. It's not an accident. It's not your weakness having been taken care of. It is an S-I-N, and God hates it. And you can't gloss it over. Oh, I know that. I've tried to. You can't do it. It won't gloss. God begins to deal with us. And when He does, He makes you want Him. And as you want Him, He impresses you with the need to examine why and see what your motivation is in wanting the Lord or whatever it is. Now, that has happened to me many times in my life. I love the Lord since I grew up in my home in Montgomery. I got born again when I was 5 and have loved the Lord ever since. I've always walked with the Lord. There are times I've stepped aside. Somebody said, well, that's when you just slip in a slippery place. No, I stepped aside. I did it myself. The devil did not make me sin. He set things up that attracted me, and I gave in to them. Sin is my fault for following a wrong lead, and it's exactly the same with you. Oh, Johnny, you're preaching like you always did. Can't you prophesy? Well, I can get up here and prophesy if you want me to do that, but I can't guarantee it's from the Lord. When God's dealing with us, He always comes down to the hidden motivation in our life. He uncovers the ulterior purposes that are concealed, sometimes even from our own thinking. And He deals with us. And the reasons we give for our actions may seem plausible to other people, but God who searches the heart knows how many times our reasons are not true. You know, I can give you a reason for why I do anything I do. And I can do it in a most convincing way. I can even almost draw you a picture of it. But when I go to God and open my mouth in prayer and supplication and in confession to the Lord, I don't dare play games. I can't do that. In fact, I don't remember that I ever could do that. I've had some people tell me that in their earlier years in seeking the Lord, they could try to fool God. I guess that I started too soon. So I never have been able to get away with that. If I would start to tell God something that wasn't right, I think I'd have it frozen in my mind. So I don't dare do that. You know, there's got to be an inner honesty. There's got to be truth. As this verse of Scripture says, in the inward parts. So many deep problems reveal themselves when the dealings of the Lord are upon us. interested in getting down to the truth about us. He wants it to be real. What is your relationship to God? How often do you talk with God? How intimate are you with God? How much do you tell God? You know, if we're open and honest with God about it, the Lord is able to subdue everything in our heart that is not godly. And I have found that a walk with God, a real walk with God, requires great humility, and yet often such arrogance appears instead of humility and seeking the Lord. So the Lord deals with our hidden weaknesses and with our faults. Some of you all don't like the word submissive. You don't like what that indicates. You know who you are. You're you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and all of you. You don't want to be submissive. Not really. You want to be submissive to what you want to be submissive. But come and see me, and let's have an appointed time, and as soon as you come in, let the Lord speak. A number of years ago, and now this precious girl is with the Lord. It was on her 34th birthday, and she lived to be 78. And I was pastoring in the Presbyterian Church in Ozark, and they were coming to the library, she and her husband. And the husband knew he was saved, and she knew she told the Lord what she thought, and you better listen to it. And the lawyer that she went to tell him to start divorce proceedings was one of the elders in the Presbyterian Church. A man that I was very close to. He was good to me and always tried to help me, and I think he was probably driving the engine when I was ushered out of town. But he was a wonderful friend, and he was a friend till he died, and he remains in my mind as a very good friend. And there were so many ways that we were meaningful in each other's lives. And he had sent this girl to me. He said, before I start proceedings, I want you to go and see my pastor. Who is your pastor? She said, well, his name is John D Reese. Oh, I know him. I've been to his church meetings over in the library. I've never seen you over there. No, you're not likely to see me over there. But you go on over there. This was in the early days of the move of God and the charismatic revival, way back. And this girl was something. She had 5 or 6 children. She was not married when she conceived any of them. But she was probably before any of them were born. So, and her statement to me about that was, well, if you make a mistake, you seek to correct it. Now, frankly, she had more honesty than most of them. And she walked in my office. She used very colorful language. And it was a great spew of all colored language. She laid it out. And as she opened the door and came in, I said, well, my goodness, what a surprise to see you. How are things going with you today, Norma? Things are blank, 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 and here you go asking me a blank, 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 blank question like that. Can't you tell by the tone of my voice how things are? You're more stupid than I thought you were. But the thing was, the Lord had spoken to my heart as she appeared in the doorway, agree with everything she says. I said, yeah, I know I can be a real pain. You don't know the half of it, buddy. And she went on and on. And I agreed with her on everything she said. I was trying to be obedient. I was new in that. And she said some more things and then started telling me about her husband. And he was the sorriest you ever saw. My goodness, he's a so-and-so. I said, yeah, that's right. What the blank do you mean saying that about my husband? I'm just trying to agree with you. You're the sorriest thing my minds for a preacher I ever saw. I came in here to talk about, I was thinking about getting a divorce from my husband. The way he's been acting, I need to get a divorce. Well, I can understand why you feel that way. You think I ought to get a divorce? I don't like a preacher that thinks I ought to get a divorce. You're supposed to try to help me not get a divorce. I said, I agree with you. I'm sorry, preacher. And that went on this way for about 15 minutes, and finally she got up, and I was very glad she wasn't close to the bookshelf, because I know I would have had to dodge a missile. And she stalked out of the room and said, I'm going back to that lawyer and tell him I don't want a divorce. And I'm going to tell him that they need to get rid of that sorry preacher down there in the Presbyterian church. And she went and told him. And they got rid of that sorry preacher. Now that wasn't the reason they got rid of him, but anyway. And it was a wonderful experience. Because I had to look into my life. Because I had broken every rule in my counseling instruction. And I had to search my motives. You know what I found out there? That my only motive in doing the thing I did, that at that time was so foreign to my nature, was that I was seeking to be obedient to God. And I misunderstood in working it out the purposes of God in teaching that to me. Because I thought if that applied in that case, it was going to apply in all cases. And up to that point, I'd had a pretty good filter. But let me tell you, I lost that thing. And I started agreeing with everybody that came to me. And they quit coming. You know, God deals with us in such a way that what works with Jamie won't work with Julie. And what works with Bill is not going to work with Ron. You have to have special gifts to work with Ron. He's asleep. I don't know if he got that from me or I got that from him. But we love each other. You know, you have to be very careful regarding the tendency you may have to set about fulfilling your own will and calling that the will of God. We serve the great, mighty God who created the whole universe and whose mind is vaster than anything we can even imagine. And when God speaks to me and tells me or indicates to me without saying a word, go and minister so-and-so to them, I've learned that doesn't mean go and minister the same thing to them. That what God wants to minister to Mary Virginia is not the same thing that God wants to minister to Emily. And we don't approach it the same way. And God doesn't approach the way He deals with us in the same way. Have you ever wondered why some people can't get away with anything and other people get away with everything twice? Hilda Children was in this church for years. She's in a nursing home now in South Carolina. I talked to her week before last. And I love her dearly. Let me tell you, Hilda never made $1,000 a month in the years she lived here. But she believed that God provided for her and that she needed to tithe every cent that came into her. And she never failed to give less than $100 a month to the church. I don't speak much about money. Both of them speak much about money. And I don't know what any of you give. I knew what you gave when I was the pastor. Because Jay wanted to write notes to you and thank you. And what you're giving doesn't make any difference. What does make difference is are you being honest with God about what you're doing. Arthur Burt and his wife, she was a wonderful lady, quiet lady, sat in the background. They were with us one night. Arthur had been ministering. How many of you remember Arthur Burt? Let me see your hands. hold him high. Most of you didn't. Well, some of you did. He was the most unique man. He lived to be 103, I think. Traveled the world. And he had never had a mental doctor in 35 years. He was very proud of that. Always proud. And he got sick. And he couldn't get well. And this was wrong, and this went wrong. His wife's name was Marge. Said, you know how he approached it? Marge, what are you doing wrong? It's holding God's gifts back from me. Isn't that just like a sorry old man of God? And I remember that night at our table when he was complaining about not able to get his healing, not able to get, and Marge said, well, Arthur, as you check this Father, are you perhaps in a relationship with God? Boom! I'm telling you, that was the third atomic bomb going on. God deals with us. He's dealing with us now. This is a different time in the move of God. There are all kinds of seasons that are a little different. I'd never heard of prophecy being for today until I got involved charismatically, and I heard that there was a man coming to Atlanta that a friend of mine knew that lived in Clayton, this boy. He was going up there for the weekend, and he was going to stay with some friends, and told us that if we'd leave right after church on Sunday and drive up there, thankfully he had gotten permission for us to come to this meeting in these people's house. I said, why don't they go to a church? Well, they're going to this person's house. If you want to go, come on. This man's a real prophet. And I said, yeah, I didn't know there was any of them left. I want to go here. I have received the baptism. I had spoken in other tongues. And I thought that I had reached the highest point available in God.